I'm Samantha Mckelvie for It's Relevant News, and we're here with Stamford's 31st Mayor David Martin on the week of his one-year anniversary since taking office. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Samantha.
And so first thing is, has it felt like a year yet?
In some ways, I feel like it's only been 6 weeks, and in some ways, it feels like it's been 6 decades. It depends on what day of the week it is. But it's been a wonderful year so far, It's been a wonderful year. I very much enjoy what we're doing, and I think we're making progress.
Okay. So you were on the Board of Reps for 26 years, I believe. You were the president for the last 8 years. You were on the Board of Finance. Why run for mayor? I know you ran before. Why were you so set on being mayor of Stamford?
Well, I've always wanted to do more. I mean, all of that time, that almost 30 years of service, was all volunteer while I pursued a separate professional career. But I wanted to do more for the city of Stamford, and I felt that there more could be done and more should be done for the people in the city. And this was the opportunity, and I'm very fortunate that the people put their trust in me to go forward.
So what was your first day in office like?
You know, I can't even remember. It was a wonderful day. It started out with a swearing-in ceremony at my home that was conducted by the governor. And then later that same day, as I recall, but I've lost track of time, it was just a whirlwind of pleasantries and greetings and shaking the hand of former Mayor Pavia as he welcomed me in, and then having the ceremony in the afternoon where my father came to swear me in and my daughter sang the national anthem, and that part I remember very clearly. But it was a whirlwind of that activity, and as I said, it's been a whirlwind and a constant challenge and set of opportunities ever since.
I know you had a lot of things on your agenda. What were some of the very first things that you took care of when you started?
I think the two things that stood out the most were that even before I was elected, I spent a lot of time talking to every one of the volunteer chiefs throughout the city of Stamford and the 5 volunteer companies. For 20 years, the volunteers and the professional force have been at odds, and while the people have been safe, the point is I think they could be safer, and I think sometimes we spend too much money. But the city had set a direction through a charter revision to consolidate these services into something more effective, more effective and more cost effective. And I spent a lot of time talking to them before I made an appointment for a fire chief. And I think I surprised everyone, including all the people I interviewed. And in fact, it wasn't just the volunteer chiefs. It was probably about 10 individuals, and this was all done prior to my taking office, when I picked now Chief Brown, who had been with the fire department. He seemed to have respect from all the different people that I had talked to, none of whom really thought that he was a candidate. But I think Chief Brown thought that there was a way to move this consolidation forward, although it would be very difficult. And I think he was up to the challenge, and so that was one of the two issues. The other big issue, again, starting before I was elected, was we had to deal with the overcrowding in the schools, in the elementary schools. And I really think that we were 2 years behind the day I took office. And I'm not trying to point fingers, but nonetheless, the significant overcrowding already occurred, and the fact base and the opportunities and what we can do really hadn't been established. But fortunately, the opportunity arose with Strawberry Hill Avenue with the Sisters of St. Joe and their facility, and they had decided that they were going to sell that. And more than likely, it would have turned into a typical condo development, high-density condo development up there on that corner. Adding to traffic, and I don't think adding, and probably losing that piece of history of Stamford. And I went up with the president of the Board of Education, the superintendent, and a few others to actually meet with them before December 1st, and shortly thereafter I met with the boards in executive session and saying, I want to go and negotiate to purchase this property for a school, and I want to preserve that history in terms of the main building there, if there's any way we can possibly do that. And in fact, if you were to ask me some of the things I'm very proud of, I'm proud of Chief Brown. I'm proud of the fact that we have made some progress towards integrating the volunteers and the professional fire. One of the mandates from the charter revision that was done a couple of years before I took office was that there was going to be an assistant chief for volunteers. And when I took office, that was not filled. And there was a process that wasn't very well spelled out. It would seem that it was, but there's a lot of question marks. And after several hundred hours of work, because we're trying to resolve the differences of opinion, we end up with Assistant Chief Morris, who I think has done a fantastic job so far of being a spokesman for the volunteers, but also moving that ball along in terms of making the volunteers part of our overall system much more well integrated. So that's on one side. We've also settled our lawsuits with the TOR district. We're still working on issues to move forward. We've also settled the lawsuit with Springdale, which is going to mediation, so we still have challenges there, but we've made a lot of progress, more progress in this year than I think we did in the last 20. And on the other side, on Strawberry Hill, as I'm sure everyone knows, we ended up purchasing that property, I think, at a very fair price. In fact, I think the sisters gave us a fair price because my commitment that if there was any way possible to save this school where so many Stamford young women had been educated, that I was going to do that and preserve that as a school rather than turn it into a condo development or another commercial office building or whatever. And those are two of the many things that I'm proud that we've accomplished in this first year.
So I kind of want to talk about the Strawberry Hill property a little bit more. What are you guys exactly planning to do with it? I hear you guys are looking to make it a magnet school, K through 5, and then when do you hope to have that done by?
Okay, complex question, lots of components. The state provides funding to school districts for schools. And if that school is what is called an interdistrict magnet school, they will provide more than 80% of the funding, and they will provide operating funds to offset the cost of bringing in kids that are not necessarily from your district. And that works well as an incentive to help regionalize the school populations, which is something the state of Connecticut needs to do. And that's where we believe we have our best opportunity financially, and I think there's some benefits educationally as well, but from a financial standpoint, we're hoping to fund this complete renovation and this school using 80% state funds. Now there's a number of challenges, which is, well, for one, we were 2 years behind the 8 ball when we started. And secondly, the state had a moratorium on new interdistrict schools because there have been a few, my understanding is, that just hadn't succeeded across the state for various reasons, and school populations were decreasing across the state. But Stamford is unique. Our school population was going up, and we had very successful charter programs, or not charter, interdistrict magnet schools with AITE and with the Rogers School. And in consultation and working with the Board of Education, we decided to make this an expansion of the existing interdistrict magnet school program at Rogers, which will enable us hopefully to get the 80% funding. And so far, everything we've seen along the path towards doing this, and we are on an accelerated time frame here, including the Board of Finance and the Board of Representatives and the Planning Board all voting for an unprecedented level of commitment to vote for an authorization for bonding, even though we didn't have all the details worked out. And that's a very rare thing, and it was very tough for them to do, but it was necessary, and we do what's necessary for the kids and for the city. Kind of a little off the topic here. But in any event, everything we see so far says that we are on track, and hopefully will remain on track for getting the funding. Now the second part is, okay, now you've got the funding, and the funding doesn't get to be 100% assured until probably this summer sometime, this coming summer sometime. But we need this school open by September of 2016. So if you get the funding on, August 1st, it's kind of hard to build a school by August 31st. Or even for that matter, all the way around a year, because of the various requirements, both with the state funding as well as our own fair bid, honest bidding policies to make certain that nobody cheats the city and gets an unfair profit out of this. So we're in the process now of figuring out how it is that we are going to work this time frame so that we can protect the important parts of our city processes, while at the same time not commit way too much money to developing a school when we still don't have the absolute 100% guaranteed, signed on the line assurances from the state, and still make this school available for kids, probably K-2, kindergarten through second grade, available by the fall of 2016. And we really need to know that we're on track by about January of next year, so that the Board of Education can do its program to ensure that it's in the magnet program and let parents know what this program is going to be so that they can apply to the interdistrict magnet lottery. We're putting a lot of energy into this. We've formed a task force to work through those construction plans and timelines. If we had done this in a normal way, we would not make that deadline. And we're trying to make water go uphill, and by gosh, if we can get the water to go uphill, I'm going to make it happen, because I think it's important to Stamford and for our kids to make this happen on a good time frame.